All right, to further engage us on these latest quarterly crime stats is crime expert, Mr. Thabang Bogopa. Thabang, it's always good to have you with us. Good afternoon. So your reaction to these latest stats, and most noteworthy, I think, for me, murder rates are said to be down, obviously, in specific provinces, yet GBV somehow went significantly up. What do you attribute this type of trend to?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to our viewers. It is unfortunately very sad that we have a rise in gender-based violence cases. However, let us explain that the main contributing factor is the amount of acquittals relating to gender-based violence cases, whereby young and emerging criminals see a trend whereby gender-based violence cases no longer convict people in court or are lost in court just for using normal ways that can be understood. That then attracts or encourages more other people to now think that you can commit a gender-based violence offense and get away with it. But also, let us look at what is being displayed mainly on the soapy operas day-to-day that are consumed by mainly these profiled offenders. You'd find that it is occurring for the purpose of education on national television. But by virtue of their profile, the offenders then get attracted to commit such an offense because they always want to duplicate whatever that they see trending. So the trend of cases being lost in court, but also it being trending on day-to-day soapies, it also affects the perpetrators to end up practicing more of gender-based violence cases.
You make a very compelling point there, Thabang, because we saw in that incident of Ucwecwe where police basically said they could not, of course, go ahead with the investigation due to the fact that there was just lack of evidence there. So, I mean, we know that, of course, some crime, especially that happens in the shadows, like your rapes, organized crimes, etc., these are usually underreported as well. So when looking at the data in this regard, one really has to then consider this aspect. Team South Africa was recently in the United States also talking about how we need Starlink at some of our police stations in order to assist with techno-crime fighting measures. Gang violence CITs are also still perpetuating. And I don't know, Thabang, is it a lack of intelligence on our part as a country? But reality also is that we have untraceable aliens in the country committing crimes and simply vanishing into thin air.
Thank you so much. Let us not confuse lack of will to be the absence of resources or the absence of policy.
Yes.
Just this morning, I was refreshing my memory with the National Strategic Intelligence Act. And you look at the resources that the South African law enforcement or criminal justice cluster has at its disposal. If ever there was a will to ensure optimum or maximum crime prevention of most of these sophisticated crimes, we will be able to keep these crimes. Even if we were to bring in Starlink or any other resource or technological means, for so long that there is no will, you look at the current deliberations, including or involving the provincial commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, that in as much as he's attempting to reduce or to cap sophisticated crime, there are so much pushbacks, including from politicians and some of the senior staff within the police and criminal justice cluster. So it is not lack of resources, it is not lack of policy, it is lack of will, both political will and intellectual will within the police. So we need to regenerate the will to enforce and uphold the law using the resources that we have. Because if you look at some of the cases, you realize that this was a very sophisticated case, but because there was will, the SAPS was able to collect all the evidence and even prevent some of very serious offenses from occurring. Let me give an example. Crimes like treason, there's a unit within the Hawks called Crimes Against the State, CATS. Crimes Against the State unit is preventing a lot of high-risk crimes because they have the capability and ability. It tells you that if the same resources were to be used in preventing some of the very basic crimes, we would achieve. Look also, my sister, into the ability of private securities to assist. So with the amount of resources we have both in public and private sector, it is very doable for us to subside this crime. But let me also mention this in closing this topic, that most of the private security, actually all, they report to the police ministry. And this is something that we need to remind people that SIRA Act got its mandate from police ministry, which is from section 205 of the constitution, that there must be law enforcement. But for them to have the authority, they operate under the shadow of Minister Senzo Mchunu. So they can utilize any of those resources. And if it needs to be at a cost, let it be at a cost, but let's use the resources that we currently have. And geopolitical issues, I understand they are affecting law enforcement, but the truth is that that is outside the scope of law enforcement. It is mere geopolitics that are affecting law enforcement. Styling as a business, if they like it, they can implement it, but it is not that we are unable to cap crime or combat crime without styling.
So basically, there needs to be a back to grassroots type of policy review and rooting out corruption within the police force itself, is what you're saying there, Thabang, in order to actually try and deal with some of the scourge of these crimes.
Yes, we can ask an open question to say, where is State Security Agency, SSA, when all these things are happening? The second question then could be, where is the National Intelligence Agency? So we need to revive the appetite to curb crime in South Africa.
All right, Thabang, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your input. That is Mr. Thabang Bogopa there, who's a crime expert weighing in on the latest newly released quarterly crime statistics.